I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Canon. We've been Disney fans our entire lives. And now, as childless adults, we're undertaking a journey through the media that shaped our lives.
Trying to find out if what made them special is still there.
We are Rewatching the Magic.
Hi, Kiki.
Hi, Tuesday.
Before we get things going, we have a bit of news that we want to talk about. First off, as of this release, Muppets Now has premiered. Do you want to give a quick thumbs up, thumbs down review of the first episode at least?
Yeah, only one episode has come out at the time we're recording this. By the time you hear it, there will be a second one up. So I really liked a lot of it. There's a couple of things where I'm like, that felt like kind of a pilot episode. You know, like this is going to go somewhere, but they're not quite settled into this idea yet. I don't know how much of it was filmed in quarantine or semi-quarantine conditions. There were a couple of things that you were like, oh, this was definitely not filmed, and you know, because there are celebrities and multiple people on set. And, but I do think that kind of the online Zoom call that stitches all the skits together, that was obviously filmed in quarantine because it's the exact same at-home background the puppeteers have been using for like talk show appearances and stuff.
I do love that their communication, their app is the Rainbow Connector.
Yeah. Way to steal my big thing that I noticed. No, we did talk about that on Facebook, you and I.
Yeah.
I do like, you know, some of the segments are better than others because this is a very skit heavy show. You know, each segment is a different type of skit. I like the way that Piggy and Deadly kind of communicate. Their banter that they have. So that was fun in that segment. And I do like Walter trying to learn more about the other Muppets.
Yeah. Let's try to do much spoilers. I liked it. My only complaint about the episode is I think that the interview segment went a little longer than it should have.
Yeah, weirdly, I think that the interview segment was a little too crazy, but without involving the interviewee. And it's always more fun when they get the celebrity in on the wackiness. And in this one, it felt like RuPaul just sat there while Muppets did weird things around, you know?
RuPaul could have just said, yeah, I'm not doing any of that wacky stuff. I'll play it straight.
Maybe. I don't know. But then the other one that had a celebrity in it was the Swedish Chef kind of thing. And I think that one suffered by it focused too much on the celebrity, and the Swedish Chef was very not wacky.
Yeah.
Like, there was a good joke in there, but I really wanted it to go all out because the Swedish Chef is such a kind of, like, even by Muppet standards, such an out there character. So I didn't feel it really kind of capitalized on what makes Swedish Chef that funny.
So let's say a thumbs in the middle for the first episode?
Well, no, I really liked it. I really did like it. And I was just really getting into it when the episode ended, so I was angry it wasn't longer.
Agreed. So let's
thumbs up for me. If you like Muppets in general, go give it a shot. Decide yourself. It may or may not be your thing, but
at least watch that first. At least give it a shot. I'm gonna say a recommendation, thumbs up. And so that's all we're gonna say. Non-spoilery in terms of that first episode. Another bit of news that's come out the day before we're recording this, Mulan was announced that in certain areas it will be released in theaters, theaters that have contained the coronavirus. In other places, such as the United States, the movie will be premiering on Disney Plus at a premium of $29.99. Clearly, this is some sort of test to see if they'll be able to take these theatrical movies, and since we're not sure when or if the virus will ever be safe enough for having full theaters instead of half full or quarter full theaters that a lot of chains are trying to get happening. This will be like the first test with Mulan, and we might see like Black Widow being the next one in this thing. Personal view, I have no problem with them releasing this digitally, especially what's going on in the world. I don't mind this being $30 because they put so much money into this movie, they have to make something back. My own issue personally is releasing it on Disney Plus at a premium, which the selling point of the Disney Plus service was you pay less than Netflix and you get pretty much everything Disney.
Yeah. Here's my issue with it is that while I am all for artists being paid for their art, that's not my issue. I do think that their price point is a bit dramatic, because here's the thing I think that studios do not understand about movie theaters and the idea of going to a movie theater. Audiences do not pay the exorbitant now prices of a movie theater to watch a movie. They pay the exorbitant prices to have a night out from home. Mm-hmm. It's why so many theaters now have like restaurant theaters, reclining seats, special, you go for perfect immersive picture, beautiful surround sound that is still not replicatable in a home, like even if you have a top line system, there's still something about the way theater sound is set up when it's done correctly that cannot really feel it at home. You pay for the experience. I think if it wasn't for the experience, I'm not sure if people would pay theater prices for a movie. And what Disney is asking is, hey, pay something akin to a theater price for a movie without the theater experience.
I can see where that's coming from.
I'm not sure it will entirely work. I think it will work for people who have like larger families. Mm-hmm. People who are like, well, we'd be spending $80 to take us and the kids and buy all the, okay, this is better.
Or even if it's just the parents going, you have to pay for a babysitter.
Yeah. However, I haven't decided yet if I'm going to pay that premium. I'm not sure if I want Disney to succeed on this one, because if they do, then it'll be like, hey kids, want to see the next Star Wars movie? $40, please.
Yeah, like I said, Black Widow, the next Star Wars, Avatar sequels, whatever the next animated movie is going to be. That's just looks like that's where they're going to go.
And while I do think that it would be good to have an at-home option for people, especially for families, to be like, hey, can we not have like screaming little children in the theater with me? That'd be great. But I don't think it should be sort of as much as a movie ticket. And I know that technically it's not as much as a movie ticket because there's typically more than one person in a household, and it's roughly about the cost of one movie ticket, maybe a couple of bucks more depending on where you live. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I think they're being a little too greedy. The good thing about it being accessible to more people is that should lower the price point. Mm-hmm. But instead, they're trying to keep the price point at least similar to at least a single ticket. And like I said, if you live in a household with a lot of people, that might be a better monetary investment than I think it would be for either of us, you know?
Yeah, and to kind of compare it to other movies, the big thing I've heard people comparing it to was Trolls World Tour, which that came back out in April, back when the start of the pandemic, and they released it to all digital platforms, all digital stores, and they didn't release it for $20. And that was a great success for NBC Universal because they made a lot of money off of it. And I think Disney seeing it as that, well, our movies are better so we can command more money. And if it was a situation where they're charging $30 for it on all digital platforms, you know, not just Disney Plus, which people are already paying for, like on iTunes and Google and Amazon and all those digital platforms, I wouldn't have a problem with it because at least it's accessible to more people. This is specifically telling you subscribe to Disney Plus and pay us more to see this new movie.
Yeah, if it was an outright like you're buying a digital copy of this movie, I'd be like, okay, yeah, $30, sure. Yeah, I think you're right on that one, but I think it's like
this is a rental.
Yeah, pay $30 to rent a movie on a thing you're already paying like 10 bucks, you know, so it's like pay $40 to have access to this movie once.
Yeah.
You know, once or twice. I don't know how long the rental period is.
I think it's like 24 hours, 48 hours.
Yeah, but is it like you have, because some rentals are like you have so long to start it, and then after you start the movie, you have a certain amount of time to finish it, but you only get to watch it once, and then it goes away, and you have to pay again. Like I don't know exactly how they're doing all that, but I don't know. Like I said, I think they're going to have to modify their ideas a little bit on what it is, and also I think if it was a lower price point, I think more people would be. Would be willing to do, but I've seen a lot of people going like $30 for a movie to rent a movie that I watch once in my own house.
Yeah,
is a bit steep. So anyway, that's all I got to say on that.
Yeah. They also announced that Disney Plus had reached 60 million subscribers. So 60 million subscribers times $30. If every single subscriber, I think that's what they're looking for, and they're going to make a lot of money for that. I don't even think that's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think that maybe Trolls did a little bit better because, you know, it was the beginning of the pandemic and it was like brand new and people were like, oh, you know, we'll do this once because we'll be out of this in 2 months and we can go back to the movie theaters, and that hasn't happened. And now everybody kind of figures that this is Disney's like little, you know, balloon they're sending up to see if this will function. And while I do think that movie theaters in general need to work more to be an experience rather than just a movie delivery service, because that's the way the world has progressed. And while I do support releasing movies digitally very quickly because you no longer have to do conversion from 35 millimeter and all that like we did before, you know, you can release this stuff immediately. I don't know. I don't want this to kill movie theaters forever. And, movie theaters are already failing because the studios have been choking them out of profit.
Yeah.
And Disney has been the biggest offender on that front.
Mm-hmm.
Disney has done a lot of shady business practices to take profits away from independent or competing movie theaters. So I don't particularly like the precedent it's setting, and I like it even less because it's being set by Disney.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. There's some stuff to think about there, and it may be stuff you want to think about when you're considering whether or not you want to rent Mulan for $30.
We'll see what happens when September, when the movie is released. We'll see what happens.
Yep.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Attention fans of funny music. FumpFest is back. Sort of. Due to, 2020, this year's FumpFest will be taking place entirely online. So tune in for free from the safety and comfort of your own home. And join us for live performances by Amy Engelhardt, Worm Quartet, Carla Ulbrich, and Devo Spice. Plus, dumb parody ideas and the 10th annual Logan Whitehurst Memorial Award for Excellence in Comedy Music. Tune in Saturday, August 29th, beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. For links and additional information, including how to participate in dumb parody ideas, visit FumpFest.com. FumpFest. Hey, somebody had to do it.
3, 2, 1.
Now, back to our show.
So let's move on to today's movie. Part of our continuing virtual summer vacation, we are going to summer camp with the movie The Parent Trap. I remember this movie. This is the original 1961 version, not the 1998 version with Lindsay Lohan. Sorry, everyone. I remember this movie. We watching this on the Disney Channel back in the day, back in the 80s. And
yeah, this came on TV so much when we were kids. Not just the Disney Channel, because we've talked before about how I didn't always have access to the Disney Channel, but this came on like ABC. This came on old movie channels. This came on family. Other family. Disney used to be a lot more open to letting other people show their stuff.
Yeah.
So this was everywhere.
It's like, yeah, if you had a syndicated show, a syndicated network, at least they would be showing at least one Disney movie over the weekend.
Yeah. So
let's kind of dive into this movie, the main storyline here. The story of two twins who meet up at summer camp, and they've never known that they had a twin sister, and they're going to make the efforts to learn about the parent that they never knew, and have that plan of getting their parents back together.
Because it's 1961, and divorce is the worst possible thing that could happen in America.
And there's a little bit of a preachiness in terms of divorce in this movie.
Yeah.
So let's talk about
into that.
Yeah, let's talk about who's in this movie. Primarily, I can talk. Primarily, Hayley Mills, who you can kind of say was one of the OG Disney kids.
Yeah. This was, I think, maybe the thing that cemented her as like a real Disney star. She had done Pollyanna before this, but this, I think, was the thing that was like, oh yeah, she's gonna be a big Disney, because this was such a technical feat as well. I think if this had just been Hayley Mills in a movie about getting her parents back together after a divorce.
Yeah.
And there's just one of her. I don't think this movie would be the remembered classic that it is.
I mean, part of the big selling point, if you look at any of the old commercials, even the ones that were airing during the 80s and 90s when this was on television, it was always Hayley Mills and Hayley Mills in The Parent Trap.
Yeah. And in fact, one of the other, well, probably the technically biggest star that's in this movie is Maureen O'Hara. And she refused to work with Disney after this as a company. Because at first they offered her a third of her usual salary to be in this movie, and she was like, excuse me, no. Which, good for her. You know, go get that money, sweetheart. That's fine. But the other thing is she wanted her name, you know, big in first on all the posters. Like, she wanted top billing and everything. Which, okay, typically, yeah, that's how it works in Hollywood. You're the biggest star. You've been the biggest box office draw. It doesn't matter if you're in it for 5 minutes. They're going to use your name to flog this movie. But the problem with that was the point of this movie was we have an actress playing two different roles on screen at the same time, which today is like, oh, yawn, that again.
Yeah.
You know? But at the time it was like, wait, you're gonna do what? And it wasn't the first movie to do this by any stretch, but it was the first movie to do it so seamlessly.
Yeah.
Because Disney used a new technique for this. Instead of doing like a green screen, blue screen chroma key, which would have been the normal way to replace a background, they did something called a sodium vapor process, which Disney apparently invented. It was done with a special camera. It involves prisms. I'm not a technical cinematography person, so I really can't explain it. But it worked so well because it doesn't have the kind of weird halo that you got when using a blue screen in the old days. And so, in fact, it worked so well that Disney wanted them to rewrite part of the movie to have more shots where Hayley Mills was on screen with herself. At first, it was more just like, we're going to do one or two gimmick shots in the movie, and Disney looked at how good it looked and was like, nope, this is gonna blow people's minds. Do more of it. And it, spoiler alert, it still holds up today. Like, this is a really good effect. But very quickly, people figured out how to make chroma key compositing work better. And it ended up being more cost effective and technically superior in the long run. So this was only used for a short time in the 50s and 60s. So
yeah, let's move on. We talked about Hayley Mills, Maureen O'Hara, Brian Keith.
Yeah, Brian Keith was known mostly for the sitcom Family Affair in the 60s on TV, and then he came back in the 80s on Hardcastle and McCormick. But, a solid film actor who was working at the time. Not as big a star as Maureen O'Hara, but definitely would have been a draw in his own.
And to wrap up the main cast, Joanna Barnes as Vicky, the villain, love interest.
Both.
Yes.
Why not both?
Yeah.
But yeah, she was kind of more a comedy actress. A lot of TV things. She played Jane in some Tarzan movies in the 50s. But this is one of her biggest roles, and she is the only person from the original movie to come back in the Lindsay Lohan remake.
Yep. Also playing a character named Vicky, so these may be the same character. Imagine living through this movie twice.
Yeah, but because of her age, they cast her as like the mother of the love interest.
Yeah, still,
one, right?
You go through this one. Imagine going through that as a young woman, and then now that you have a kid, and now your kid's going through the same thing. History repeating itself.
Yeah. That family just has the worst luck.
Yeah.
But that's what you get for being a gold digger. There are two kind of supporting characters that we kind of want to mention because they might be familiar to you for one reason or another. The first is Nancy Culp, who, if you ever watched the Beverly Hillbillies, she was Miss Hathaway, the secretary in Beverly Hillbillies. So yeah, awesome.
Yep.
And then the other one is the Reverend, who comes in originally to marry the father and his little side love interest. And that was Leo G. Carroll, who, as you may know, was over a barrel.
If you know it, you know it.
Yeah, if you know it, you know it. While Leo G. Carroll was a massive character actor in Hollywood, especially for his role in several Alfred Hitchcock movies, he had a long-running association in that. But he was also in the TV series Man from U.N.C.L.E. So, fun. But today, I have to say that probably to people of our generation, he is best known as being name-checked in the opening song to Rocky Horror Picture Show. So,
let's kind of move on and talk about the Sherman Brothers, who did the songs for this movie.
Yeah, they did for the movie.
They did the main song, The Parent Trap. They did the love song for Now for Always, and the twin song, Let's Get Together.
Yeah, and one of these three was a massive radio charting number.
Yeah, and it wasn't the one you would think of. You would think because The Parent Trap, they had Annette Funicello singing on this one, and she was probably the most well-known Disney kid at the time, and doing beach movies with Frankie Avalon. But it was actually Let's Get Together that was the big chart topper.
And it also wasn't the version of Let's Get Together that is sung by Annette Funicello in the movie. There are two versions of that song in the movie. One plays very early in the movie over a record player at a dance the kids are at, and that one is sung by Annette Funicello. But later in the movie, you hear it as a duet between Hayley Mills and herself. And that version was the one that went big on the radio.
Yeah, and you kind of hear a little bit of For Now for Always because Maureen O'Hara sings part of it, half the song she's humming, because storyline-wise, she's trying to remember this song from, 13 years ago, that she probably hasn't heard since.
Yeah.
Also, Tommy Sands also sings on the main song, The Parent Trap, and I mentioned that because at the time this movie was released, just about a few months later, Tommy Sands and Annette Funicello would be out in Babes in Toyland. So they were pretty much recording this song on the lot while they were filming the movie.
As far as Sherman Brothers songs go, I think Let's Get Together is the only one that holds up. And
you're not a fan of It's a Small World?
No, I mean of this movie. In the great catalog of Sherman Brothers songs where you're like, hey, did you know they wrote this song and that song? I'm not sure that if you're trying to introduce somebody to the genius of the Sherman Brothers that you're going to play them The Parent Trap or For Now For Always.
True.
You might play them Let's Get Together because it is catchy. That is an earworm, let me tell you. But there's some good rhyme in there. The tune is memorable. It's a worthy Sherman Brothers song. But the other two are very kind of phone it in feeling to me.
All right. You want to move on to the movie proper then?
Sure, let's go ahead and dive right in.
We talked about the theme song because the opening credits is all done in like Rankin Bass stop motion style.
Yeah, with naked Cupid fairies.
Yeah.
Weird choice.
And
well, I mean, Cupid being involved is like okay, but it's just like it's a very weird aesthetic.
A boy Cupid and a girl Cupid. And they're both naked.
And they're both naked, but they don't have any definition to them.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a very weird choice. But
as I kind of say with a lot of these old movies, you remember when the credits were at the beginning of the movie?
Yeah, I still think that should
come back.
Sort of come back. The thing is that because the unions were a little less powerful then, a lot of people who worked on the movie did not get credited in the credits. Like it was a thing that unions fought for later. So the credits were shorter. I don't necessarily think that all credits should run in front of the movie. Like if you have something like a Marvel film or Lord of the Rings or something, effects heavy movies, those credits can last 3 or 4 minutes. So maybe not that kind of thing, but maybe there needs to be like hey, here are the like big names and super important department heads or something. And then put like, and here's every single person that helped digitize a frame of this at the end of the movie. I don't know.
Split the credits between the beginning and the end.
Yeah. Kind of the A tier credits and the also rans. I don't know. That seems a little harsh, but I don't know. I kind of like the thing because then it gives you an excuse to have like more music and
yeah. Every movie should have some sort of theme song,
Yeah, theme songs for all movies and all TV series. That's where it really annoys me. I need TV themes to come back. I'm sick of it being like, blah, and it's like, that was the theme song to this TV series. Like, no. Like, give me something with lyrics or hummable or, I don't know.
Yeah, so let's get to the movie proper. All-girls summer camp. We meet Sharon and Susan, played by Hayley Mills, and they meet, and they're instant rivals because they believe the other person stole their face. And they end up pulling pranks on each other, and it is hilarious at some point, and even culminating at a dance, which features the neighboring all-boys summer camp, which every girl in the camp seems to be excited that there's going to be a bunch of boys there. Okay. But Sharon and Susan end up brawling at the dance and ruin the whole thing. So now they're punished by They're being forced to live together for the rest of the camp time in the same cabin. They're forced to eat at the table together. They're forced to get along or kill each other, basically. Summarize the first 20 minutes of this movie.
Yeah, and it really is like kind of a bunch of gags, and it takes. The thing about this movie is it's really way too long. Did you feel that?
I remember this movie being a lot shorter as a kid. This is over 2 hours long.
I was like, oh my goodness, get to the point already. Yeah. Maybe they cut a lot out for
the TV airing, maybe? Because you got to add in commercials and all that, maybe?
Yeah, but the summer camp at the start especially is a bit long.
Yeah. Especially the introduction.
Oh, go ahead.
I would say the introduction of Sharon takes a little too long, and it takes us too long to get to Susan.
Yeah, that is very weird that you're like, you only really see it from Sharon's perspective until 10 minutes into the movie, maybe.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about this is that it takes them an unrealistically long time for everybody to be like, you guys know you're twins, right?
I've never seen her in my life.
Yeah, and it isn't until after they've been pranking each other and they're in front of the headmistress and she's like, for sisters to act this way, and they're like, we don't know each other and we have different last names, haven't you noticed that? So maybe we need to be asking questions about how two identical people are on,
I mean, they say everyone has at least one doppelganger, and it's possible to meet, but yeah, the coincidence, when we start getting into the coincidences between them, it starts to add up.
Yeah, and it takes them, I don't think we're supposed to think that these two girls are exceptionally unintelligent or anything, but it takes them way too long to even consider the possibility.
Yeah,
it's like, you don't have a mom, I don't have a dad, we're born on the same day. Boy, that's weird. Yeah.
And it's not until Sharon sees a picture of Susan's father that she starts to put the pieces together. She gets goosebumps on her hand, like she's seen this person somewhere before. And she goes to the picture of her mother. It's like, this is my mother. And then Susan's like, well, I've seen this picture before in my house. This is my mother. And then they finally figure it out. Oh, wait, your mother is my mother. My father is your father. We're sisters.
Yeah. I don't. The thing is that I don't know. It seems a little weird to me that they never say exactly where this camp is supposed to be.
Well, I mean, no. Yeah, we don't know. It's somewhere between California and Boston.
Except it's close enough to Boston that she can take a chauffeured car to and from. Sharon can. Mm-hmm. We know it's far enough away from California that Susan has to fly. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. It just seems weird. Like, I went to some summer camps that were far away from home, mm-hmm. but I never went to a summer camp that was farther than one state over, and you could drive there by bus. Mm. Like, I went to, like, a summer camp that was like, well, we're driving over the state line into another, but not very far in, and,
within driving distance, basically.
Yeah, it was like a day drive. And I mean like a full day. It was like 8 hours, but still, that to me is more. I can understand if it was like some very specific, like, well, if you want to go to space camp, you have to fly to, Florida or wherever they used to have space camp, Mm-hmm. If it was like a very specific camp, but this looks like just like a generic sleep in a cabin and do things around a lake kind of camp.
One thing that does get me about this is, not to derail, but while Susan clearly has an American accent, kudos to Hayley Mills on that. They had Sharon talking with a British accent, and there's no explanation why she has a British accent. Something that she fixed in the remake.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this because at one point it seemed so weird to me that I was like, I actually Googled why is Sharon British in this? Because in my mind, and I don't know if it was like I eventually saw the Lindsay Lohan remake and I was like, oh, okay, it's just one of the girls was raised in England and one of them. But when they're like, no, I was raised in Boston, and I'm like, okay, well, her mom was English. Like, her mom's family is English and came over, and now they just live in Boston. But then we get to Sharon's house, and the mom is American. The grandfather is American. The grandmother has kind of like a posh, affected kind of accent, but it's not British. Mm-hmm. And when I did my little Google search to see if like there was any kind of reason for this to happen, it seems that the entire collective brain trust of the internet just kind of figured Hayley Mills is English and not very good at voices.
Possibly.
Because if you watch those first couple of scenes, mm-hmm. Susan has a very American accent, and she does pretty well on it. Mm-hmm. But after the switch occurred, both girls just sort of talk vaguely British the entire time, and nobody questions it.
Well, there's a blink and you miss scene of Sharon teaching Susan how to pronounce certain words, like can't and shan't. So I guess that kind of
is, but the thing is that if you watch the rest of the movie, even when they're back together and they can just be themselves, they both sort of have a generic, either I'm American but trying to sound more posh, or I'm British who went a little local from living in America. Like, both of their voices change over the course of the movie, and it's very strange, and except for that one little scene. But the thing is that, like, why does this one girl who lives in Boston and presumably goes to school with American kids, who comes from a family where apparently everyone around her is American, mm-hmm. It's not like she has a British nanny and that's where she learned to talk and it just kind of stopped. Like, everyone in that house is American.
Yeah. It just, like, I'm going to probably agree. It says that Hayley Mills couldn't do another American accent. Can you imagine Hayley Mills trying to do a Boston accent?
Oh, goodness. But yeah, so I'm glad that when they did, I think they were probably like, Hayley, just kind of use your normal voice for one of them and make her sound like upper class, and the other one's supposed to be like an outdoorsy American girl. And I think that was their idea, but it really doesn't make sense in the context of the movie.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So they make they're gonna switch. They're gonna switch places to meet their respective parents. Eventually come clean and get their parents back together because they believe that since neither one of their parents ever remarried, they must be secretly still in love with each other. Because that's how this works.
Yeah.
And this is also the scene where, like we said before, where they get a little preachy on divorces. Soon there's going to be more divorces than marriages. Why can't couples just stay together?
Yeah, I don't know if I want to get into this now, but let's do it. Is like, if two people divorce, there's probably no good reason for them to be together. You know, like if you can work out divorce, especially divorce in the 60s, was not a thing you just did on a whim. It was not super easy, and it came with a lot of stigma, especially if there were children involved.
Which it says a lot that this is the big subject of a Disney film, even in the 60s.
Yeah, but I think it was because it's so preachy that it gets away with being a Disney film. Like, it's not a Disney film about learning to come to terms with divorce, and that divorce is sometimes better for people, you know, than staying in a horrible marriage that you're not happy in. That would have been super progressive, but instead this was like, how dare you get divorced? Obviously you must love each other, even though we see like zero evidence for these two people still being in love until the movie kind of forces them together.
And let's talk about the elephant in the room. Two parents decide that they're going to split two children, two twin sisters, live on different parts of the country, and never tell them they have a sibling.
And they never at any point during this movie show any kind of regret or guilt.
No.
Like,
I mean, they get the big teary reunions. We get the teary reunion when the parents find out which kid they have, but it's like they've never apologized for it. They never say that this was wrong. Like, that was their agreement. Like, you know, they're going to split up when these kids are babies, and you take one, I take one. We're never going to tell them about the other. We're never even going to really say about their other parent. We're just going to pretend that they don't exist. What kind of, and I'm going to get a little peachy here, is what kind of parent willingly gives up one of their own children? I understand if you have to give them up for adoption because you can't support them. I understand that. But these two characters are loaded. One has like a big posh house in Boston, and the other owns a ranch in California. They're not struggling for money. Yeah, the big story of this movie is that a gold digger is marrying the girl's father because he's loaded.
Yeah, and they even suggest that her father is a millionaire, which was much rarer in the 60s.
Yes.
Than it is today. You know, he is one of the wealthiest people in the country at that point, you know. And her, from what we see of the, like, beautiful 3-story,
mansion?
You know, 1800s townhouse in Boston or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, that family's loaded too, especially since the mother actually says, like, hey, do you want to stop off in New York so I can go shopping and get some new dresses before we go meet your father? Like,
and get her hair done.
Yeah, I mean, that loaded. Okay, both of these families. So, why didn't they at least come to some agreement of like, well, we'll send them to a boarding school together so they can be together, and then we'll both have visitation with them, you know?
They kind of get to that by the end of the movie, like, 6 months with you, 6 months with me.
But the thing is that while that is an equitable split, it's not really good for the child, because that means you have, like, you know, 3 months in one school and, like, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you would have to, like, move in the middle of the school year.
Yeah, and that's not
to make that work. But there are ways to do it, you know. Both parents are rich, so maybe the parent could fly in and live 6 months at their second house in California or something.
Probably, or, you know,
so that the girls could stay in one location and the parent comes to visit for 6 months, you know?
Yeah, or something.
Yeah, there's all sorts of ways to make this work that isn't just like, well, we have 2 kids, flip a coin and you take one of them and we'll never speak of this again. Like,
very King Solomon-esque.
Yeah.
And it's like, it kind of makes... Okay, there's this meme that's been going on for a few weeks on social media of who the film tells you the villain is and who the actual villain of the movie is. And it feels like the parents are the actual villains of this movie because of what they did to the kids.
Yeah, one review I saw of this said this family is going to need decades of therapy to get over this. Somebody else said, why are we considering Vicky, the new girlfriend, to really be that much of a villain, because she's the only person that doesn't really lie to these girls.
Yeah,
she kind of rolls with I mean, she's not nice to them, but they're not nice to her either.
But she's not, she's not playing a front, really. And the parents kind of played a front with them for 13 years.
Yeah. To the point where, like, and here's the thing, like, the girls never really questioned before, like, hi, Dad, I'm 13 now. Like, can I have Mom's phone number? Because they weren't told the other parent was dead. They were just told, like, you were born, we got divorced, now you live with me.
Yeah. We know that Sharon has never really seen a picture of her father until that moment in the cabin. But Susan has seen a picture of her mother that her father immediately took away from her.
Which is some sort of, like, weird gaslighting cruelness.
So it's like they had no intention of ever telling their own child about their other parent. Again, much less telling them that you have a sibling. Much less a twin sibling.
Yeah, there's just so many layers of awful in this. And I hate these parents. And then the idea is like, oh, well, let's get our parents back together. And I can sort of see how a little kid would think that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even a 13-year-old, which is not super little, but still not fully formed brain yet, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can still see that, like, well, they never remarried, so obviously they're still not. That makes sense from a kid's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that there's really nothing in this movie that suggests that they were good as a couple. Ever?
So a lot of the characters seem to disagree that they got divorced at all. Like, you have the housekeeper saying you didn't know what you had when you had it. The grandfather is telling his own daughter, maybe you should go get a makeover to impress your ex-husband. It's like people that these parents trust are kind of throwing back, why did you get divorced in the first place? This person was perfect for you.
I didn't get the feeling of this person was perfect for you so much as I got the feeling of it's a shame you ever got divorced. Here's the thing that I don't understand, though. At least to the grandfather that we meet, the mom's dad, seems to be a good person.
He's my favorite character in this movie.
He's really great. I love him. But he, why did he go along with this? Like, can you imagine, like, you have twin granddaughters and they're adorable, and obviously he was in their lives because, like, I mean, they got tons of money, so travel is no issue. Mm-hmm. And they're close enough that when the divorce happened, she, like, took one of the girls and went to live with her parents.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, obviously this guy had to have been, like, the doting grandfather because he is as Sharon grows up.
Mm-hmm. What I'm going to say
he's going to be okay with just never seeing one of his granddaughters again and then hiding?
I don't think he is. Because you see that it's his wife, Grandma, that's kind of walking all over him.
That's another issue. Grow a spine, dude.
But I'm saying that she is completely walking over him. I think that it says a lot about the grandma that she is completely okay with this. And it's probably one of the people that say, yeah, just split the kids up. One kid for one parent. And who knows? Again, we're never explained this in the movie. It's never explained. But she seems to have. Also, she has this obsession with her granddaughter having long hair. And that seems to be a big thing. Like when Susan makes it to Boston, oh, wait till your grandmother sees what you've done to your hair.
Well, yes, but I think there's a thing of femininity.
Well, yeah, Grandma does say,
It's okay for an older woman, a mature woman, to have shorter hair because both the mother and the grandmother do. But there is a sense of young women supposed to have long feminine hair because that is supposed to be more attractive to get a husband. There's a lot of sexism that's, done with the length of a woman's hair. And, I've got personal trauma on that. But, like my mother her mother forced her to have long hair for her entire childhood. So, but yeah, it seems like I can sort of understand how two people as awful as these parents would be like, okay, this is what we're doing. But like that everyone else in their lives, like all the staff on the ranch are okay with this. The mom's parents are okay with this. Like it just
the
you would
staff
think
I can
that
understand because the staff I can understand because that's their boss. So if they kind of get out of line with their boss, they're not going to have a job. Even at one point, the cattle rustler even says, do you want me to lose my job? Because he's going along with this plan.
Yeah, but there's that housekeeper at the ranch who's always like poking her nose into anything. And like, that the father has to have like papers or pictures or something hanging around the house. Like there's got to be at least one picture in this house of like mom and dad holding two girls.
It's probably
like
he just took them all down.
Portrait.
Like I say, he's probably took them all down. He even took as we saw
Yes, he took them all down, but they have to be in the house somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like hidden in a drawer or whatever. And I'm sorry, but if you have a live-in housekeeper, they're gonna know where all your things are. Like it's just the way that's gonna work. So like I don't know, it just seems like a woman like that would be like, oh dear me, I accidentally left the drawer open in your dad's office. Sweetheart, go get me something from in there, would you? Like there's ways to do it where like the kid could stumble upon the evidence themselves, but I don't know, it just everything about this seems so contrived and awful. It is based on a book.
Yeah.
And the book was originally German. So I don't know.
Maybe something got lost in the translation?
Well, no, because it does seem to be the same story. Like the parents divorced, they split up the girls, they meet at a summer camp, and through not necessarily shenanigans, but the girls switch to get to know the other parent, and one of them gets like sick, and that's what brings the parents back together. Like I don't think their original idea was to reunite the parents. I think they just wanted to meet their other parent. But this one like was a very like convoluted sitcom plot of like, But the thing is like, okay, so these parents obviously divorced for a reason, and when they get back together, the mom goes from being like the most beautiful, wonderful woman to being kind of a bit like a scheming, pranking, sort of violent woman.
Okay, Mitch deserved that Shiner.
I'm not saying he didn't deserve it, but her entire personality is a 180 from how we see her at the beginning of the movie.
I think it's just Go ahead.
I don't know. It's just she's very genteel and loving, and she never raises her voice in the movie. And the second she gets around the dad, she's fighting and scheming and making like childish, tongue stick out faces at people, and she turns into an entirely different person, and it is not a good person.
That's probably why they divorced.
Yeah, but the same can be said for the dad too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he seems to be kind of a reasonable guy who's just trying to find love and make sure his daughter's okay with it. Like, he seems a very attentive father. And then the mom shows up and he turns into this, like, angry, cursing, manhandling kind of guy.
Macho kind of guy, almost.
Yeah, it's like he
I'm the man of the house and you will do as I say.
Yeah, he seems a lot less toxically masculine being just like a single dad on a ranch with a daughter than he does when there's like a woman around. Like an adult woman. I don't know, it's very weird, but like the closer these two get together over the course of the movie, the more I hate both of them.
Yeah.
And at the end of the movie, when the two of them kind of start to be like, hey, maybe we should rekindle some stuff. There's a whole scene where they're having dinner together after he's broken up with his fiance and stuff. And he says, I really miss being married to you. And the things he listed were my too big for just my clothes. I miss your wet stockings in there. I miss you using my razor so much it became dull. And I'm thinking, but did you miss anything good about her? I miss snuggling with you in a warm bed or something. Like, there's none of that. It's just like, hey, remember the way that you used to annoy the crap out of me? I was kind of used to that, and now my life feels weird without it. Want to get back together?
And even when we get to the switch, when the mom comes back, when the mom gets there, it's like she's as if she's starting to make her own plan. Like she starts, she tricks the girlfriend to go camping with them. Like she's that was part of her plan. And she asks the father to help take the apron off of her, and she's kind of smiling as he does it. It's like almost like she caught on to the plan very early and is kind of feigning some innocence on that, and then trying to get the dad back.
Yeah, she's already kind of in on this plan before they even land. She goes and gets her hair changed. She goes and gets new clothes. And maybe you could say that, like, the grandfather kind of shamed her into thinking she was kind of frumpy and not pretty. Like, I could almost see in a different context it being more of a, like, oh, my ex is getting remarried, huh? Well, I don't necessarily want him back, but I would like him to remember what he's missing.
That is one of the feelings I got when watching this movie again. Like she was trying to one up something. Like, if you want this younger woman, I'm going to show you what you had and what you lost.
Oh my God, can we talk about the concept of the younger woman for just a second? And no, this is not going where you think it is.
Go ahead.
I am sorry to Joanna Barnes, who I'm sure was a very wonderful woman, okay? But when we first meet her, when we first meet Vicky, and the housekeeper at the ranch is talking about, well, I can see why he would want a young thing like her, but why she's hanging out with an old troll like him, there can only be one reason, or about 1 million of them, if you know what I mean. you know?
Yeah.
Like, but the thing is that then they show Vicky, and you're like, she's got to be at least as old as he is, but she looks older.
Yeah.
Like, she looks like she's got to be like 45. She looks older than Maureen O'Hara.
Yeah.
And you're like, why are they talking about her as like the young whatever? And I looked it up, okay, and I actually like did the math on this. When this movie was made / came out, Brian Keith would have been roughly 40 years old.
All right.
Joanna Barnes would have been about 27. So there is an age difference there.
Mm-hmm.
But the way they style Vicky,
yeah,
the way they dress her, the way her hair and her makeup is done, she looks so much older.
Maybe they just wanted to really push maybe they was really wanted to push the fact that she's the villain, you're supposed to hate her or something.
Well, okay, I don't really know what they were going for, but it just doesn't work. Like, you can't style somebody to look older to be like, hey, they're the villain, and then constantly talk about how she's too young for him.
And every character goes off on that. The housekeeper, even the girls themselves. Oh, I can't wait for you to adopt Vicky. He's like, I'm not going to adopt her. I'm going to marry her. She's a child.
Yeah, it's a very strange thing. And, I'm not sure that a 27-year-old marrying a 40-year-old would really give me any kind of pause. I mean, there's a little bit of an age difference, but not enough to really... By the time you're 27, you're kind of fully who you are as a person anyway, so age really doesn't come into it too much at that point. But I'm not saying that she's a good person, because she is scheming, and it's very obvious that she is not wanting to marry him for any reason other than money. Mm-hmm. And that her mother is kind of pushing her into it.
Yeah, that's the thing about the mother. Is like the mother is personally trying to get her daughter to marry a rich man.
But the daughter also seems into it. Mm-hmm. Like, the daughter seems to think, like, yes, that is an excellent plan. I want to marry a rich man and take his money. Mm-hmm. But, and I'm not saying that marrying for money is not valid, so long as you're upfront about it. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people whose marriages are basically a business partnership or a companionship thing. Mm-hmm. And, okay, fine. I'm not saying that every relationship has to be romantic or sexual or whatever. You do you. But he seems to be in love with her, and she seems to just be using him for his money. And that's the part I don't like. Mm-hmm. If he had been like, you know what? I want companionship. You seem to be willing to provide that. I have a lot of money. You are welcome to some of it. Okay, fine arrangement.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the lying and trickery, and also I'm not saying that the girls at the end didn't deserve that slap.
They did not deserve it.
But they're also still children, Yeah. But yeah, the girls get like really vicious to her.
Yep.
Like they want to bears.
Yeah, the entire thing with Vicky is like, that's even why they kind of come clean, is that they know that their father's about to marry another woman, which is going to ruin their plan of getting their folks back together. So they want to get rid of the competition, so to speak. And yes, they show guilt afterwards, but it's like more of a sorry they got caught versus sorry they did something bad.
Yeah, they seem to be completely remorseless over, like, not necessarily breaking up the marriage. It's kind of one thing to be like, Dad, have you considered that she doesn't love you and she's only marrying you for your money, and that she's kind of awful to us. That's one way. But, like, you know, to try to annoy her and make a mockery of her and get her into dangerous situations. Like, they lure her into the lake, into the deep end of the lake. But, like, do we even know up until that point that she can swim? Because we've never seen her get in a pool or a lake.
Yeah, and they kind of fool her into what tricks will help her in nature, like the banging of the sticks, and they gave her the insect repellent that's actually just sugar, and the lizard on the water tin, like taking advantage. And
some of those are relatively harmless.
The lizard I can get. I mean, the lizard, sure, why not? That's harmless enough, but it seemed that every prank goes a little bit more, up until the fact that, as you mentioned, you know, they put honey on her feet and bears come to the campsite. That could have gone a lot worse than it did.
Well, and the thing is that they're making fun of her, like, oh, those were just little baby cubs. Bear cubs that age are never out of the sight of their mother. And there is an angry bear who will move to protect those cubs within 100 feet of them. There has to be. Unless the mother bear dies, that's how bears are. So if you see bear cubs in the woods, you know, free tip, if you're out in the woods somewhere where there's bears and you see a cub that seems to be on its own, do not approach it, because there is an angry mama bear ready to rip you to shreds, just hiding in a tree.
That's why the term mama bear is used.
Yeah. No, they will protect their offspring with immediate deadly force. Like, unless you see a dead mama bear and some cubs nearby, then you can call, like, animal control and try to save the cubs and stuff. But, like, boy, do not mess with that. So it seems weird that experienced campers and ranch hands and stuff would be like, oh, there's no harm in a little baby bear. It's like, no, there is a giant mama bear somewhere around here.
Yeah. Let's kind of backtrack to their attempt to get their parents back together by recreating their first date. You know, they have the sign of a restaurant they went to, and you know, they start playing the song that Maureen O'Hara was singing earlier in the movie, just trying to rekindle that mood. And pretty much the parents are like instantly arguing. And,
yeah.
You know,
I hate veal parmesan. This is frou-frou food. I don't like that, you know?
Well, yeah, you liked it when we were dating. You liked it when we were first married. Now you hate it. Or in the husband insinuating that the only reason that his ex-wife is back in his life is to get back with him. And she's like insulted by this. I came for my daughter. I didn't come for you.
Yeah. There's also a little bit of weirdness in the fact that there's a awful ham-fisted idea at trying to get a Romani violinist idea for the Italian restaurant where they make a guy dress up, and then also the girls later use kind of a slur term as well. You know, it's like, just know it's in there if you're particularly sensitive to that. But, you know, it's one of those things where, like, well, it's definitely not the worst we've watched on that front.
Yeah.
So
minor nitpick. Susan is clearly holding an acoustic guitar, but the sounds are of an electric guitar.
Yeah, I kind of made that joke during my rewatch. I was like, wow, that is a really wonderful electric sound she's getting out of that acoustic.
Yeah, so they do the song "Let's Get Together," which became, like I said, the pop hit at the time.
And it's also a really good sequence.
Yeah.
The choreography is kind of cool. The double shots are really neat, and they really do hold up. Like I said, I've been watching these on like a 4K Ultra HD, you know. This really holds up, impressively so.
For a movie made in 1961, yeah.
But it's a fun scene, and it is probably the most memorable scene in the movie.
That is like the scene that they use to kind of pretty much advertise this movie, even years later. Anytime they try to advertise that movie, the scene they show is the "Let's Get Together" scene.
Yeah, and I really like it's my favorite scene in the movie by far. Mm-hmm. This little song number. It's cute, it's light, and it kind of brings it relieves some of the tension of what is a really awful and uncomfortable situation, which is them trying to shoehorn in this first date idea on
again from a kid's perspective. It makes sense, let's recreate the day that in their minds their parents fell in love, and they'll fall in love again. Obviously didn't work because honestly, if it was a situation where they talked and at least came to a decision, okay, we're going to share custody of its kids, and they left amicably, I can talk amicably. Yeah, I mean, the movie probably could have ended right there without the happy ending, and probably still would have married Vicky and whatever. But
you know, that could be a happy ending too.
Yeah, they could have at least, the girls would still be in each other's lives, and it's just that they would get along. And honestly, that probably would have been a better ending for this movie, where they would understand that, yes, they were in love at one point, and they still see the traits that made them fall in love. But as the father said, they were not good together. It was good for a little while, but it was not something that was meant to last forever. Which not all marriages are. And honestly, I mean, you and I both have friends that have gone through divorces, and they're best friends now.
Yeah, and also, I had one set of grandparents who were desperately in love until the day they died. I've never seen such an amazing couple together. They had their disagreements, and it wasn't always perfect, of course, but they were, fierce partners who were absolutely devoted to each other until they were separated by death. Mm-hmm. And then I had one set of grandparents who had split up before I was born. But because it was, the 60s, they decided to stay together for the sake of the children. And I've never seen two more miserable, awful, abusive people in the, maybe not physically abusive. I never witnessed any of that. But, they were roommates who hated each other and also owned a business together.
Yeah, I've known couples like that.
And I spent my entire childhood going why do these people not get a divorce? They are the most unhappy people I know. And it was because they were in the deep South in the 60s, and everybody told them, nope, when you marry forever. You get one shot at it, and that's it. And they spent decades of their lives being just the most awful brand of miserable. And they were miserable to other people, too. I don't know if they would have been better people apart, individually. But I know together they were a nightmare. And so I've known people who have had, like, when I was a kid, it was like, you know, I had friends who their parents went through a divorce, and I would go like, oh, I'm sorry, that must be awful. And they're like, no, it's great. They're finally happy now. Like, I go to mom's house and she's like singing and wandering around. I go to dad's house and he's like hanging out with his friend. They were miserable in the same roof, you know. And then I had friends who wished their parents would get divorced. I would watch these families and like they would say like, I would like nothing more than my parents to realize they should divorce, but they're staying together because they think it's better for me, and I'm absolutely miserable. So it's one of those things that, because of some things that I witnessed as a child, I came to the realization that I don't think it's good for couples to stay together because for the kids. Like, oh, I don't want to disrupt my child's life, because let me tell you, if the parent is absolutely miserable in their living situation, that kid is going to know it, and it's going to make that kid's life worse. Like, have the kid bounce between two houses than to live in a house that's just constantly full of just sad anger. And I think that's kind of what this movie, they're talking about remaking this movie again for Disney Plus.
I had heard about that this is one of the movies that they wanted to redo for Disney Plus. I mean, they've already done Lady and the Tramp. Who knows what other movies they're going to do? Maybe they can have a better ending.
Yeah, I kind of hope that if they redo this movie, I would really like to see a version of this where the kids kind of realize, like, oh, no, there is a definite reason why these people divorced. Like, we have never seen them in the same room together, and now we understand.
So, yeah, I guess we can kind of go to the ending, kind of, because we kind of jumped around here. But they have their moment. The mom and dad have their moment, and they kind of realize that, you know, maybe they do still have a thing for each other, and they kind of the mom was saying, you know, it's been so long for her since she's been with anyone, and, you know, obviously the dad just broke up his engagement, so I could kind of get back together at that point, which leads to what possibly is a dream sequence of the parents remarrying, or they actually got remarried. It's implied to be a dream sequence.
I'm supposed to think that her dream was
a prediction,
you know, another of her psychic visions that later comes true, and that what we see at the end is what eventually happens.
Possibly. Yeah, we completely jumped over the fact that apparently Sharon is psychic.
Yeah, well, it's one of those jokes. It's like I always get goosebumps when something important is about to happen. And then later in the movie, the dad says, do you ever get that feeling that something important is about to happen? I got goosebumps and something weird is coming. And then, like, that's as the mother and other daughter are flying in, you know?
Yeah.
But it's just like a small little conceit to get them together, but I really think we're supposed to think that the wedding we see at the end is the real thing. That we're jumping into the future, you know, just a little bit.
Yeah.
One of the reasons they give for getting back together is like that they don't want to grow old alone.
That's almost like settling in a way.
Yeah, that left a really bad taste in my mouth. Where they do kind of sort of hint that they have affection. Really go like, you know, I love you. I can't stop thinking about you. You know, I've grown as a person, maybe. Which is possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible that they both went and got some therapy or something in the meantime, and now they're different people. But it's like, it doesn't really seem like that until this point in the movie, where all of a sudden it's like, yeah, I don't want to grow old alone.
Yeah.
Like you said, talks about, it's been so long for me since I've been. So it looks like she might not have even had a boyfriend since she divorced. It seems like.
Yeah, I mean, the 60s, a woman with kids. I'm not trying to judge, but I'm saying maybe there's a stigma there, even in the 60s.
Oh, yeah. But also the father, one of the girls makes the joke to Vicky of like, oh, yeah, he has girls here all the time. But you really do get the feeling that him having a woman around is completely unusual, if not for the first time.
And this relationship between her, the father, and Vicky seemed to have started right when Susan left for camp. So it's only been, what, 2 months? 2 months courtship, and then they're going to get married?
Yeah, I think the camp was supposed to be like 6 weeks long or something. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Roughly 2-ish months. And you have a feeling that they probably were sort of hanging out and dating on, like, without telling the girl. Which is valid, if you want to go out on a couple of dates to feel somebody out before introducing them to your children, good, I recommend that. But it seems like completely, like, the girls didn't even know that the dad wanted to date.
Yeah.
You want to wrap this up?
Yeah, let's kind of wrap it up.
I think we've kind of talked it through. I'm gonna say that while this is a Disney classic, and while it is fun through a lot of it, if you turn your brain off.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very weird movie, and I really think that if it wasn't for the technical achievement and that one song, that this would have been one of those, like, I don't know, That Darn Cat or something, where it's like, it's a weird Disney relic, but it's not really remembered as, like, a great movie.
Yeah, because on this rewatch, you find out that pretty much every main character in this movie is on some level a bad person. Not just Vicky, but the mother and the father for splitting the girls up. Even the girls themselves are kind of bad people for personally trying to sabotage their father's assumingly first relationship in 13 years.
But also, it starts earlier than that. Like you said, the movie starts out with, hey, this girl looks a shocking amount like me, and instead of going, this is weird, their first thought, both of them, is, I will ruin her life. Like, what kind of child thinks that way?
Yeah, so I'm going to say, while this is considered a Disney classic, I don't think this has the magic. I don't think so.
I'm gonna kind of agree. I think that most of our good feelings for it, I think that this is kind of why we started the show.
Yeah. Are these classics that we loved as kids because they were good, or is it because it's what we saw as kids? Is it just the nostalgia?
Yeah, and I watched this film a lot as a kid. I'm not sure I watched it closely, but it was on in my house a lot.
Yeah.
Just by default of, like we said earlier, it was always playing on TV. You could find this on TV at least once a week somewhere.
Yep.
And I think that's where my good feelings come for it, is like, I remember that song, living room, and kind of dancing when that song came on. I really was fascinated by the technology. Mm-hmm. But yeah, as an adult, this hits in a completely different way, and it's not a well put together movie. script is not that great. There are a couple of jokes that you're kind of like, heh, but they're not like classic jokes.
Mm-hmm.
You're not like laughing all the way through this one. And the more you think about it, the more like bizarre and uncomfortable it gets. So I'm going to agree. I didn't feel the magic on this rewatch.
You know there's a sequel to this movie?
There are like three
Several.
sequels to this movie with
All
Hayley
of them,
Mills. Yeah.
All of them were made for TV movies for the Disney Channel. Parent Trap 2 in 86, Parent Trap 3 and 4 both in 89. And 3 and 4 really feel like these were pilots for a potential Parent Trap series. That's what they felt like to me. At least when I first saw them, I have not seen these since they first aired, but it just felt like they were setting up something like a Parent Trap TV series for Hayley Mills.
I never saw any of the Parent Trap sequel movies. I saw the remake with Lindsay Lohan when it came out, kind of as a weird like, okay, I'll give that a try. But I was already kind of too old for that concept, you know.
And they tried to update the story a bit in the remake at times. It's still the same beats almost. It's almost like they just modernized the script and modernized the references and changed some character names around.
I don't know. I think that this was never a great idea for a story. And it kind of disturbs me that it's been redone so many times. Yeah.
And even, I mean, if you want to talk about the best version of this story, I would say the TV show Sister Sister was the better option, because at least gives an explanation of why the twins are separated, because they were given up for adoption and adopted by two different families. At least that gives a better explanation why these twins have never met, and doesn't, at least to me.
Yeah.
Do you remember the show Sister Sister? Tia and Tamara Mori?
Yeah, I remember it, but I was kind of watching other things at that point in time, so I was never a regular viewer. I think I watched a couple episodes. But, the idea of meeting someone who looks like you or is your literal twin, by birth or whatever, is an interesting concept. And it's happened a few times in real life,
Long lost siblings, yeah.
But I'm not sure that then going like, hey, let's work that into let's get two horrible parents back together. Like, just the way this is set up, I think it's more of a tragedy than a cute romantic comedy. And I'm really shocked that Hollywood hasn't caught on to that yet.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's all we can say on the original Parent Trap. So, let's move on to what we're talking about next week. I guess you can say we are continuing our little vacation because we're going to Disney World! Virtually. By... at least as far as 1970s Disney World, because we have a special request.
Yeah, our good pal Lufa, who is one of the Toilet Paper gang, our good pal and burrito lover Lufa, mentioned to us in a live stream that we might want to take a look at this. So we're going to trust his judgment. I'm not sure you should trust the judgment of a loofah, but it hasn't done me wrong yet. And we're going to take a look at the Mouseketeers at Walt Disney World.
Our first look at the Mickey Mouse Club.
Yeah, our first talk on this podcast about the Mickey Mouse Club. Yeah, so this is not the original. Well, I'll go ahead and warn you, this is not the original Mouseketeers.
No.
This is a different version.
Yeah. So.
But we might get into the Mickey Mouse Club as a thing next week.
Yeah. So we'll tune in for us talking about the Mouseketeers at Walt Disney World. Also, check us out on iTunes. Give us a review. Check us out on Spotify and all the usual places that we're at. And we will talk to you next time. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Rewatching the Magic. We invite you to keep the magic going by joining the conversation online. Find us on Facebook at Rewatching the Magic, on Twitter at Rewatch the Magic, and of course, find all new episodes at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com. Until next time, remember, the magic is for everyone. It only stops if you let it.